All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of our weekly partner summit series, following up the Qumulo M&E summit that we ran adjacent to when we were planning to run NAV this year. So this week we're joined by Dave Helmley from Adobe, he's head of strategic development and professional broadcast and cloud edit, and Chuck Below from eMAM.
Hello.
Hi, David. I'm just going to...
Hey, guys, I'm on. I just haven't got my video turned on yet.
I just made you co-host, Dave. So today's agenda is I'm going to give a quick update on some enhancements to Qumulo, particularly the Qumulo shift for Amazon S3 feature. And then I'm going to hand to Dave, who's going to talk a little bit about the Adobe partnership with eMAM, and then Chuck is going to take us on a solutions overview. After that, we will do a Q&A, and at that point, I will unmute everyone's mics and ask you to raise any questions. If you have any questions during this session, please feel free to put them into the chat. I'll try to answer them in real time, and if not, we'll bring them up at the end of the session during the Q&A. So first, let me get the housekeeping out of the way for updates on Qumulo. So for those of you in the audience that are existing Qumulo customers or familiar with the product, we have two different methods for enabling hybrid cloud workflows. The default is the native replication, so replicating a directory structure from an on-prem cluster or a cloud cluster to another cloud cluster. And the second is the shift for Amazon S3 feature, which allows you to build a relationship between a local file path, which could be the entire file system or a subfolder within the file system, and then do a one-time copy of that directory structure to a native object on Amazon S3, which would preserve all of the directory structures as S3 prefixes and preserve the file name within the object name. With the release of Qumulo Core 4.2.5, we have added full functionality for both shift to and shift back from S3, and exposed the functionality via both our REST API, the command line interface, and via our web UI, which allows a role-based access control end user to be able to do on-demand data movement to and from S3. So yet another option for hybrid cloud workflows that we are hopeful that our partners will embrace and put into their own applications, so that there'll be more ways to take advantage of this feature and add additional functionalities such as scheduled transfers and more complex transfers that span multiple directory structures. And obvious reasons why we took this route, by allowing customers to tier data off of, I shouldn't say tier, to move or copy data off of Qumulo without incurring any additional cost or keeping the data in a proprietary format. Is we listen to our customers, and the primary use case that they see for moving data into S3 is to take advantage of native AI, ML, and other cloud native services on AWS, such as transcode or marketplace offerings that expect a S3 object. And then obviously collaboration, that this opens up new ways to collaborate with both internal business units or B2B relationships with other media companies. So with that, I'm going to pass over to David Helmley, who will talk a little bit about the relationship with eMAM and Adobe and the integration points that have been established.
Thanks. Am I coming in okay? Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
sound great.
Excellent. So yeah, thanks for having us on the show today. And yeah, just a couple things on eMAM. They've been a long time Adobe partner, and we've worked with them with a number of customers on a number of different projects, and it's been amazing to sort of watch this product develop. And for those of you that aren't aware of what the combination of Adobe an eMAM look like? Chuck's going to go into some of that and show you what some of that looks like. But essentially, it's a panel that's inside Premiere Pro, resizable panel that allows you to do, advanced search, browsing of different parts of your workflow and your media, and it's pretty amazing to kind of watch the integration, because when I look at panels that are really well designed, like the eMAM panel, it looks as if Adobe had written the panel inside Premiere Pro, and it's part of the native application. And I think that's a sort of a testament to the work that eMAM's done. It really is as simple as either right-click import and drag and drop in a number of capabilities within the application. And some of the things that they've changed over the years, they've got some nice collaboration tools in there that allow you to get markers on the timeline, sort of have this sort of round trip workflow, which I think is pretty good. And it kind of all, for me, evolves around, Robert, project management. How are we going to get this product or this project moved around to create the product that we need to at the end of the day? So when you take a real deep look at what eMAM's done, the integration is really tight. And again, as I've said, they've been a long time partner. And the one thing when you look at solutions like this is how well do they know, Premiere Pro and After Effects? Because that's really, for me, it's like, how well do you really know the workflow, and do you really know our APIs, right? Our application programming interface, in order to trigger all these different functions. And eMAM has done a pretty amazing job. And the last thing I'll mention about it, as much as all I really care about is video, and that's not exactly true, but everything in my world revolves around video. I am really happy with the solution that they have around products like InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, for that sort of publishing and web workflow. So for Creative Cloud, it is an all-encompassing, sort of MAM solution. So with that, I'll pass it back to you. And you're on mute.
And Chuck, you want to bring up your presentation, and we'll move to the background and give you the full stage here.
Okay, all set.
Right. Let me know when you're sharing.
And let's see, there we go. And all set there. Should be sharing now.
Looks good.
All right. So thanks, Dave and Robert. So really the key, I mean, for us has been over the years being able to develop a really strong relationship with Adobe, building in with most of their creative products and being able to share content between the two applications and so on quite seamlessly. So if you're not familiar with eMAM, we are a media asset management system. We can acquire basically any type of media coming in, from 4K, 8K to PowerPoints and PDF files. So we can pretty much manage all type of media. We also manage live encodes as well. We have a number of customers who are actually bringing in live feeds and then being able to edit that content while it's coming in. Also open up within Adobe Premiere through the panel, and then be able to edit that content, package it up, share it, deliver it, and then of course archive after everything's done. But really the ease now of both cloud, on-prem, and so on, but even a little bit easier with cloud, being able to easily upload content from pretty much anywhere around the world, and centralizing that content, sharing that content with editors and producers and directors and whoever's doing any kind of media, being able to browse that content quite easily, and then be able to share metadata, search capabilities, also being able to go in and kind of share and then add metadata automatically through AI technology, which is really key for us as well. Being able to tag the media with speech to text or facial recognition, and and then as David mentioned about subclipping content, adding markers, even through that live workflows, we can actually tag content as it comes in, but then also cut it and edit it and package it up for highlights and things like that for different events and sporting events and things like that. So the system itself does have a lot of capabilities where it's non-technical person being able to go in, grab content, put it in and package it up and then share it, and then take that and then add it to the creative side, which is Premiere, After Effects, even the print content going over to Photoshop and InDesign and Illustrator as well, being able to share that content amongst, pretty much anybody anywhere around the world, if it's cloud-based or central. A little bit tougher on the on-prem side with security and things, but we also run in a hybrid mode as well. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But really on the eMAM side, again, as I mentioned, we can pretty much take anything in from anywhere. Streams that are coming in, you can use like Epifin. We were talking with them this morning about boxes where you can just have them locally and then be able to connect to the internet, have those files stream up to the cloud, and then be able to have eMAM manage that content. Now with Qumulo, which is great because they then provide simple setup and configuration through eMAM, with storage and so on. And then that S3 connection as well really helps out, being able to archive in the cloud directly and quite quickly. But we also run in hybrid modes where we actually run servers and services running locally for their on-prem storage as well. So what that means is that you can either upload to the cloud, you can upload locally or to different facilities and so on, and then share that content in the cloud as well. But eMAM can also help through Qumulo as well, manage that content, excuse me, pretty much from anywhere, locally or in the cloud. We have one client actually that is actually managing multiple locations in multiple countries with media, being able to do it this way, and having, say, an eMAM in the cloud makes it a little bit easier than to connect with, on-prem systems and of course cloud storage as well. Now on the workstation side, this is kind of interesting. So if you have a Premiere workstation that's remote, everything's been uploaded to the cloud and so on, there is the ability then to do proxy edits, offline edits, and things like that, and share those projects amongst everybody. So as David mentioned about sharing After Effects projects, InDesign projects, Premiere projects, Photoshop, and so on, anybody remotely can either download, say, a proxy and view that, but I'll talk about here in a workstation next here. You also have the ability to kind of share or manage projects from a workstation in the cloud as well, like maybe using Teradici as an example, and having that ability then to work off Qumulo, which is fast, high-speed storage from that workstation. And that basically takes your Premiere license, moves it to the cloud onto the workstation, so the power is actually in the cloud versus on your local machine, and you're using this PCOIP type technology where pixels are being uploaded and downloaded to your system where you're viewing it and being able to preview and run the project as if it's running in the cloud, but it's as if you're running it locally. So a lot of technology and capabilities there. Now, as David mentioned about the panel, we've been building this for I think 8 years now, 7 years. With Adobe and so on, being able to have Adobe Premiere up and running, open up the panel, and then be able to have a full window inside of eMAM. And so what that gives you the ability is to go in, search for content, find content, being able to bring in maybe individual assets or a group of assets based on a category that you've assigned to, or even a project as well. So we have the ability inside of eMAM to kind of start a project that then can be converted, imported, and converted into an Adobe project down the road or after you import it. Now, the other thing is I mentioned we have the ability to run both original and proxy content from a remote location or from that workstation that's in the cloud. So we manage that, reconforming of proxy versus original automatically through the panel. And so you have the ability to check out that project. You can then localize that project, to your local laptop here. Like I'm in Nashville, so I could bring it down locally here, or you can just store it in the cloud, keep it in the cloud. And then you also have other capabilities of streaming. So there are some other options that we have there as well, that are available to you. But again, through that panel just gives us a lot of flexibility here. And so what we're able to do then is manage that project. So let's say that you go in, you maybe even start in Premiere and upload it to eMAM or export it to eMAM. That project's now stored inside of the eMAM system in the cloud. And then you have the ability really to manage the versioning of that project as you're going through the process. So I could start it here and then have Dave or Robert pick up the project and then start working on it at their location. But the idea really here is eMAM through that panel gives you the ability to kind of manage that project. Now, through MAM systems, if you're familiar with MAMs, again, organizing content, finding content is quite easy. You have through the panel the ability to kind of search for everything that you need individually, but also based on categories as well on the assignments. So typically photographers will upload the content, it'll go in or a project goes in and it's inside or assigned to a category. And then you can quickly then go search for, say, project 01 here and find that content and then import it in. You do have the ability also to do advanced search. So if you're looking for keywords, metadata information, captions, you can still search on that as well. And then anything that's even archived, say in S3 or Glacier at a later date, you can restore that and bring that in through the panel as well. So again, we have the ability to import content or import media locally on your machine and then export that content. And what the panel does with all the API connections and so on, we then take all that media and then export it up to eMAM, import it, create proxies, thumbnails, and then assign it to the project. And then again, the next editor or person can then check that out. Also view proxy sequences and things like that as well. So we manage the entire process of knowing what assets are there. So if they're already in the system, there won't be any uploading. But if they're not, we will detect that and then automatically upload that if you'd like us to. You can also select not to, but again, it'll be offline for somebody next to check it out. But the ability is, through the panel, it's given us that capability to kind of manage the up and down. Now, as I mentioned, we do have the ability to go in and actually create timelines and things like that. So again, this is kind of the non-technical person that can be semi-creative, but you can also package up different sequences and things like this, and then be able to then pass that on to Premiere. So we share both subclipping metadata as well as markers and then sequences as well between each other. And so then again, we can manage those versions, as you can see in the lower left-hand corner there. We can manage in all the different versions. Now, how do you set this up? We have, obviously, you can do annual licenses. You can purchase licenses from us and place them anywhere in the cloud or on-prem. But we also have the ability to go through, say, AWS Marketplace and then be able to launch a system like a create system here using Adobe Premiere. And of course, you have to have an Adobe Premiere license, excuse me, to be able to do that. But be able to then start up and launch an eMAM system within about an hour and be up and running and start producing. So with that, I think I will turn it right back over to you, Robert. And there we go.
All right. Thank you, Chuck. We have one question that came in during the chat was on the live ingest and AI analysis, tagging and subclipping of proxy files. Is this the question was this done via eMAM or via Premiere Pro? I think you answered that in the question, but perhaps to dig a little bit deeper into that, is there also a native subclipping tool or is this typically a Adobe led solution for growing file ingest?
It could actually be both. So on the eMAM side, we have a simple subclipping and markers and tagging and so on. And then we also have connection with AI services that you can send the media once it's been recorded, though, not live, but once it's been recorded, you have the ability to send it up to the AI service. But through the panel, you can then open up that same live stream that's coming in and then start doing everything that you want to do, that can be done in Adobe Premiere, let's say. So both ways.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and allow everybody to come off of mute. If there are any questions from the attendees you'd like to raise directly to any of us here on the panel. All right, so everybody should be able to unmute. Any questions from the audience?
Hi, this is Ariel speaking. Thanks for sharing earlier on. So basically, we are quite keen to have this integration between the cloud storage by Qumulo as well as on the eMAM for the MEM system and the editing done at Adobe Premiere. So basically, the workflow that we are looking at is on the live ingesting and on the transcoding as well as to work on the proxy files based on markers in and out of, let's say, a proprietary AI system to do some specific recognition of, let's say, facial recognition or speech to text, doing speech to text analysis and doing the final editing using the Premiere Pro or other editors. So basically, this workflow, can it work if it is fully on-prem? Without having it in the cloud?
Yes. So on the live encode, you can have live encoders, local Qumulo storage with an eMAM server running, with Adobe Premiere workstations running, and then be able to do the edits and so on. The only situation would be is on the AI side, you have to have an open port to the internet. So that server has to be publicly available to connect, and there's some certain ports you can open up and be able to do that because we share data back and forth between the two. But yes, it can be done.
All right, and the so-called the files or the media files that we are going to upload to that AI system is going to be the proxy files. Am I right to say that?
Correct. Yes, and in some cases, some of them only need the audio file. But most of them just take a proxy like an H.264 and do the process. But each one of them has a different requirement. And then we've already worked that out with most of the popular ones.
Okay, great. Yeah, so maybe more in details, perhaps I could reach you, Chuck or Robert, for the storage in the S3 as well as and you from Adobe, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Arya. It's a great question, and Chuck, that kind of reminds me that eMAM is always a very early adopter. I mean, in the edit to sorry, not the edit to cloud, the media to cloud solution with AWS, the eMAM was one of the first to integrate with that framework on Amazon. Early adopter for the media platform as a service and AWS marketplace in terms of MAM platforms. For this new model working in the cloud, what is the typical time to deploy an eMAM installation for a cloud deployment versus a on-prem deployment? And what is the beyond the deployment? What's the typical onboarding time to get a new customer up to speed on a standard workflow on eMAM that doesn't require a lot of bespoke integrations?
Yeah, so on the cloud side, if you're deploying purely in the cloud, we're talking within a matter of hours. If you talk about like a hybrid situation where we're doing now one in Florida, it's typically we run into or talk with the IT folks and we have to have ports open between the two. So that usually takes about a week or so to get that done. On-prem, typically it's, acquisition of hardware and various things. If everything arrives quickly and IT sets it up quite quickly, we're within a couple of weeks to be able to do that. And then typically about a week on adoption. After we've gone through workflow analysis and making sure that we kind of cover everybody's needs in each department, typically about a week to 2 weeks, being able to kind of walk through that and then train them on it. So.
Great, thanks, Chuck. Any other questions from the audience? Please feel free to unmute and raise your question either on one of the chat or verbally. All right. Well, while we're waiting, Chuck, we tend to see hybrid cloud workflows arise when our customers, particularly in the editorial space, need short-term access to the compute resources that are offered on AWS for rendering or ephemeral editorial workflows, such as a short-term project that requires collaboration across multiple regions. How would eMAM be used in a post-production workflow where the customer does not really have a traditional broadcast MAM workflow and was really just focused on collaboration in Adobe Premiere, in the cloud in this case?
Yeah, so using the marketplace, it makes it quite easy. I mean, typically, if you go in and go to the marketplace, turn on one of our pre-existing SaaS model options, click on that, within an hour, you're going to have a system set up. And typically what we do is we provide them with some training and then also videos and things to do training and so on, and get up quickly, with the storage is already set up for them. Typical metadata is already set up for them. So the basics in the form is all there. But then the marketplace allows you just to kind of rent it for hours or rent it for a month, so you could go in and say, I only need it for about 48 hours. And you could turn on, and then what that gives them though is the ability to centralize all their media coming in from all types of sources, gets it up there quickly. Somebody connects with Adobe Premiere through the panel. It takes maybe 2 minutes to download the panel and install it. And then they're up and running, they're finding their content, they're editing. So with that marketplace, like I said, it's an hour or by the hour or by the month. So
thanks. And in that application, can also help with cost control by parking data on a Qumulo cluster to S3 and restoring it during inactive periods, or again using the new shift for Amazon S3, staging all the data in a lower cost tier in S3 as the content is aggregated, and then not composing the Qumulo file system until the point of production. I'm gonna pivot to Dave a little bit. I mean, you guys just wrapped up Adobe Max, which was just an amazingly well executed virtual event, given the challenges that we're all living under right now. What do you think is new and interesting from the digital video and audio team that was announced at Adobe Max that you want to share with the audience today?
Yeah, I mean, as usual, there's a ton of stuff at Adobe Max, and if you haven't been to an Adobe Max before, you can pop up on YouTube or just do a query on Google on Adobe Max. Some great videos, especially of the keynote, to talk about all sorts of things that are coming down the pipeline. But I think the coolest thing is to make sure you check out Adobe Sneaks, to sort of find out the technologies that we're working on, not necessarily products by themselves, but the technology that we're working on. The other thing is just to mention about the stuff that is available immediately at the Max downloads, the version 22s that we just released. So we went from version 15 and 17 of Premiere, of After Effects, and 18. We just moved everything over to 22 to try to make it easier. So that was one of the great things that came out of Max for me. It probably makes Chuck and eMAM's life easier when you're trying to tell customers, in order for this to work, you got to have this version of Premiere with this version of Media Encoder and this version of After Effects. Now everything is just level set, hopefully by from here forward by year. So technology wise, Robert, I think some of the biggest things to come out, we touched a lot on it, is the new AI tools that are being built in. Our new speech to text, I think right now is second to none. It is a collaboration of different products that are out there. Excuse me, I'll just turn that phone off. One of which is, before we process any speech to text, we actually do noise reduction and a lot of AI to the file before we process it, and then we process the languages. It's available as part of your Creative Cloud, which I think is really important because you don't have any hidden costs that you don't have to worry about. So we have 12 languages available today. Multi-frame rendering inside of After Effects is just going to make things happen, 2, 4, 5x faster in many cases on After Effects, which means we now use, all the cores that you've got available to you. And then lastly, just around collaboration, with our recent acquisition of Frame.io, the possibilities are unlimited. That is an amazing platform, not only what they've done for camera to cloud, we're pretty excited about that, but just collaboration and the way they approach it overall. They have a very rich API set, and Chuck knows this as well as the rest of the eMAM team. We're very good with sharing APIs and how these things all work together. So trying to figure out how collaboration, say on the MAM and the assets during ingest and this communication about how assets move around, which they do very well with markers and other things that they can do on the MAM side. How do we incorporate some of that into what we're doing on the Frame.io side, where we're marking up, compositions and After Effects and sequences in Premiere Pro for output, so we can have a discussion about what needs to be fixed or addressed with the Frame.io tools that today. So the future is looking really bright. You're going to see lots more around collaboration and AI coming from Adobe, in 2022, and some of which you can get today.
Great, thanks, Dave. Anytime I hear faster rendering, it's bring it. Love to see enhancements and improvements in performance for the applications, and always up to the challenge of meeting the performance requirements of these workflows as the technology advances. So we're at the top of the hour. If there are any last questions before we close out the session? All right, one more from Arya. Would there be a possibility for the creation of the proxy files to tap on Adobe Media Encoder?
Yes.
Maybe they're asking, and Chuck can also chime in as well, Robert. They might be asking, are we using Media Encoder on the back end, so they're licensed? And Chuck, I believe you guys do have that as an option, right? You're typically using Media Encoder as one of those tools.
Correct. Yeah. And so you have an option to do server-based or local transcoding for sequence, and then also, of course, proxy as well.
Yeah. And I think this matches what I was saying early on, and really to understand what we're trying to say is eMAM has been doing this for so long. They have a really good, with Premiere and After Effects and the other tools, they have a really good grasp of what APIs are available, and to sort of take advantage of those for the customer's benefit. If you've already paid for a transcoder or utility tool like Adobe Media Encoder, it'd be great to use it without having to purchase, say, another tool, right, Chuck? So I think you guys have done a great job of using the tool set that's available to you. And on top of that, we're always striving to make the tool sets better. If there's something that a developer like eMAM says that, hey, it'd be great if it would do this or that, and maybe time code this or that we take that into account and try to roll those out in future developments. And we have worked with eMAM on a number of enhancements over our long relationship together. So
great, thanks for all the questions, Arya. Is responding. Thanks, gentlemen. It's been a very fruitful session. I hope shed a little bit more light on this joint solution. And obviously, eMAM's available in the marketplace. Quick and easy access to reach out to the team, as is Qumulo, and welcome any inquiries afterwards about building out these joint solutions and looking at your workflows. Thanks everyone for joining, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Learn more at emamsolutions.com or emamcloud.com.